سلام، من مهدی نوری هستم و توی این مجموعه ویدیو با هم میخوایم بریم سراغ 4مین جلد از سری کتاب‌های American Headway. درسته که بالاش نوشته 3 اما این 4مین جلده، چون میدونین سطح استارتر داریم و بعد 1 2 و این میشه جلد سوم که سطح اینترمیدیت هستش. بریم با هم دیگه این ویدیو رو با درس اولش شروع کنیم. Let's start with Unit 1. A world of difference. In this unit, we want to talk about different tenses that we have studied so far. Also, we want to talk about what's in a word. And we have got some everyday situations. But the main focus of the lesson is on tenses. من سعی میکنم یه کوچولو توی این دوره بیشتر انگلیسی باهاتون صحبت بکنم. اما اونجاهایی که لازم بشه حتما فارسیاشم براتون توضیح میدم. توی درس 1 میخوایم تمام تمرکزمون رو بذاریم روی تنس ها و زمان مختلف افعال که تا اینجا با هم دیگه یاد گرفتیم. Let's start with the first part. Each question has one word missing. Write it in. Look at the example. For example, where do you from? We don't have a verb here. We need a verb and we should say, where do you come from? One word missing یعنی یک کلمه جا افتاده. این 7 جمله رو نگاه کنید. ببینید اون یک کلمه که جا افتاده کجاست؟ اونو جاگذاری کنین. Number 2. When and where were you born? 3. It's a question, but we don't have any question words. So we should say, do you live in a house or an apartment? 4. Why are you studying? When you have ing, you need am, is, are, or in the past was, were. So we say, why are you studying English? 5. Which foreign countries have you been to? 6. What you do last night? The question is about past. What is the question word auxiliary verb for past? Did. What did you do last night? 7. What are you going to do after this class? حالا برای اینکه یه تمرینی کرده باشیم رو زمانهای مختلف میتونین این سوالا رو خودتون جواب بدین. For example, where do you come from? I come from Tehran in Iran. When and where were you born? I was born in Tehran in 1989. Do you live in a house or an apartment? I live in an apartment. Why are you studying English? Because it's an international language and I need it for my job. 5. Which foreign countries have you been to? I have been to Russia, to the United Arab Emirates, and to Turkey. 6. What did you do last night? I watched TV. 7. What are you gonna do after this class? I'm gonna cook lunch. Quiz time. I didn't know that. Again, we want to work on tenses and auxiliary verbs. میدونین که auxiliary verb همینایی هستن که ما بهشون میگیم افعال کمکی برای سوالی ساختن مثل do, does, did. خب حالا exercise 1. Answer the questions in the one word quiz. بیاین این 12 تا سوالی که اینجا هست رو اول خودتون جواب بدین برای فان فقط، اما به سوالاتش دقت بکنید. There are some words which are bold. یه سری کلمه هستن اینجا که bold شدن و بزرگتر نوشته شدن. بهشون فکر کنید. Think about them and think about their tenses. به زماناشون هم فکر کنید. For example, number 1, in which country do men and women live? This is simple present. But question 5, which of the 7 wonders of the world is still standing? This is present continuous. بعد از اون من پلی میکنم. گوش بدین ببینین جواباتون درست بودن یا نه.
Unit 1, Track 2, One World Quiz. 1. In which country do men and women live the longest?
Women and men live the longest in Japan. Women live on average 86 years and men 79. The average life expectancy in Japan is 81.25. In the US, it is 77.8, and in Germany, 78.8.
2.
In which year did the world population reach 7 billion?
The world population reached 7 billion in 2012. There are now over 7.3 billion people in the world.
3.
If you are standing on the equator, how many hours of daylight do you have?
If you are standing at the equator, you have 12 hours of daylight every day of the year. You also experience the fastest sunrise and sunset in the world, between 128 and 142 seconds, depending on the time of year.
4.
Where does most of the world's oil come from?
Most of the world's oil comes from the U.S. It produces 12 million barrels per day. Saudi Arabia produces 11 million, and Russia produces 10 million.
5. Which of the 7 wonders of the world is still standing?
Of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, only the pyramids of Egypt are still standing. The Colossus of Rhodes and the Lighthouse of Alexandria were destroyed by earthquakes hundreds of years ago.
Why didn't dinosaurs attack humans?
Dinosaurs didn't attack humans because they became extinct 65 million years ago. Human beings didn't appear on Earth until 130,000 years ago.
7.
Where was the Titanic sailing to when it sank?
The Titanic was sailing to New York from Southampton when it hit an iceberg on April 14, 1912.
8.
How long has Hawaii been a U.S. state?
Hawaii has been a U.S. state since 1959. It was the 50th state to be admitted to the Union.
9.
How many people have won the Nobel Peace Prize since it started in 1901?
103 people have won the Nobel Peace Prize since it started in 1901. These include Nelson Mandela in 1993 and Mother Teresa in 1979.
10. How long have people been using the Internet?
People have been using the Internet since 1969. It was invented by the U.S. Department of Defense as a means of communication. It first went live in October 1969 with communications between the University of California and the Stanford Research Institute.
11. Which language is spoken by the most people in the world?
Chinese is spoken by the most people in the world. Over 1 billion people speak it. English is the second most spoken language in the world, with about 500 million speakers.
12.
In which country were women first given the right to vote?
New Zealand was the first country in the world to give women the right to vote in 1893. Canadian women were given the right to vote in 1917, but women in Paraguay weren't allowed to vote until 1961.
Now, these are the answers. How many of your answers were correct? خب حالا در ادامه من متن تمام این لیسنینگ‌ها رو براتون گذاشتم. میخوایم از روش بخونیم با هم و یه سری عباراتش رو با هم دیگه معنی کنیم و کلمات جدیدش رو یاد بگیریم. Number 1. In which country do men and women live the longest? توی کدوم کشورها مردا و زنا طولانی تر از همه زندگی میکنن؟ Women and men live the longest in Japan. Women live on average 86 years and men 79. On average. On average. The preposition for average is on. On average یعنی به طور متوسط. The average life expectancy. Life expectancy یعنی میل به زندگی. اشتیاق به زندگی. The average life expectancy in Japan is 81.25. In the US, it is 77.8 and in Germany, 78.8. Question 2. In which year did the world population reach 7 billion? Population, the number of people who live on the earth. یعنی جمعیت دنیا. The world population reached 7 billion in 2012. There are now over 7.3 billion people in the world. Question 3. If you are standing on the equator, how many hours of daylight do you have? Guys, look, this is the equator. Equator همون خط استوا هستش. میگه اگه شما روی خط استوا وایساده باشین چند ساعت روشنایی روز رو خواهین داشت. If you're standing at the equator, you have 12 hours of daylight every day of the year. هر روز 12 ساعت. اگه اینجا وایسین روزی 12 ساعت روشنایی روز داریم. You also experience the fastest sunrise and sunset in the world. Sunrise is the time when sun comes up. Sunset is the time when sun goes down. طلوع خورشید، غروب خورشید. Between 128 and 142 seconds depending on the time of year. حالا بسته به این که depending on. اینجا گفتم حرف اضافه average همیشه آنه. حالا اینجا هم depend حرف اضافهش آنه. یعنی بستگی داره به اون وقتی از سال که شما این طلوع و غروب خورشیدتون بین 128 تا 142 ثانیه طول میکشه که سریع ترین طلوع و غروب در دنیا هستش. Number 4. Where does most of the world's oil come from? بیشتر نفت جهان از کجا میاد؟ Most of the world's oil comes from the US. It produces 12 million barrels per day. This is a barrel. بشکه. Saudi Arabia produces 11 million and Russia produces 10 million. Which of the 7 wonders of the world is still standing? 7 wonders of the world. عجایب هفتگانه دنیا. این که میگه is still standing یعنی هنوز پابرجان و خراب نشدن. Of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, you know, ancient means very, very, very old. باستانی. Only the pyramids of Egypt, these are the pyramids of Egypt, are still standing. The closest of Rhodes and the lighthouse of Alexandria were destroyed by earthquakes hundreds of years ago. Earthquake, you know, when the earth starts shaking. زمین لرزه. 6. Why didn't dinosaurs attack humans? چرا دایناسورها به انسانها حمله نکردند؟ Dinosaurs didn't attack humans because they became extinct 65 million years ago. Extinct یعنی منقرض شدن. ما با become استفادهش میکنیم. Become extinct. حالا اینجا گذشته نوشته. They became extinct یعنی اونا 65 میلیون سال پیش منقرض شدن. Human beings didn't appear on Earth until 130,000 years ago. میگه انسان ها تا 130,000 سال پیش اصلا رو زمین زندگی نمی کردن که ولی دایناسورها 65 میلیون سال پیش منقرض شدن. 7. Where was the Titanic sailing to when it sank? Sank is the past form of the verb sink, which means for something to go down underwater. یعنی غرق شدن. فقط حواستون باشه که برای غرق شدن اشیا ما از فعل sink, S-I-N-K گذشتهش sank استفاده میکنیم. برای آدم ها از فعل drown استفاده میکنیم. به معنی غرق شدن اونم. خب وقتی میگه where was the Titanic sailing یعنی داشت کجا میرفت دیگه. شناور بود. داشت حرکت میکرد. The Titanic was sailing to New York from Southampton when it hit an iceberg on April 14th, 1912. This is an iceberg. A very, very huge amount of ice in the sea and in the oceans. How long has Hawaii been a US state? هاوایی چه مدته که یکی از ایالت‌های آمریکاست؟ Hawaii has been a US state since 1959. It was the 50th state to be admitted to the Union. ادمیت شدن یعنی پذیرفته شدن و قبول شدن. 50مین ایالتی بود چون میدونین که آمریکا 50 تا ایالت داره. 50مین و در واقع آخرین ایالتی بود که اضافه شد به ایالت‌های آمریکا. 9. How many people have won the Nobel Peace Prize since it started in 1901? چند نفر جایزه نوبل رو بردن از وقتی که شروع شد؟ صلح نوبل البته. Peace means صلح. 103 people have won the Nobel Peace Prize since it started in 1901. These include Nelson Mandela in 1993 and Mother Teresa in 1979. Question 10. How long have people been using the internet? آدم‌ها چه مدته که دارن از اینترنت استفاده می‌کنن؟ People have been using the internet since 1969. It was invented by the US Department of Defense as a means of communication. Department of Defense وزارت دفاع. میگه it was invented by the US Department of Defense as a means of communication. اینجا means اصلاً به معنی داشتن نیست. اینجا به معنی وسیله هستش. به عنوان یک وسیله ارتباطی. It first went live in October 1969 with communications between the University of California and the Stanford Research Institute. 11. Which language is spoken by the most people in the world? کدوم زبونه که توسط تعداد بیشتری از افراد توی دنیا صحبت میشه؟ مطمئناً خیلیاتون توی جواب زده بودین English, but Chinese is spoken by the most people in the world. Over 1 billion people speak it. English is the second most spoken language in the world with about 500 million speakers. 12. In which country were women first given the right to vote? Vote یعنی رأی دادن. تو کدوم کشور زنان برای اولین بار این حق رو بهشون دادن؟ Right یعنی حق که رأی بدن. New Zealand was the first country in the world to give women the right to vote in 1893. Canadian women were given the right to vote in 1917, but women in Paraguay weren't allowed to vote until 1961. Now, let's talk about grammar. We start with this. Read the questions in the quiz again. Identify the tense in each one. همون کاری که من از قبل بهتون گفتم انجام بدین. گفتم سوالا رو که دارین میخونین بیاین تشخیص بدین که هر کدوم چه زمانی هن. Now, answer these questions. Which tenses use the auxiliary verbs do, does, did to form questions and negatives? میگه کدوم یکی از زمانها و تنس ها از این auxiliary verb ها استفاده میکنن که سوالی و منفی بسازن. I'm sure you know that we use do and does for simple present, don't and doesn't for the negative version and did for simple past. اینا که حال ساده، اینم که گذشته ساده. Which tenses use the verb to be, is, are, was, were? حالا کدوم از اینا استفاده میکنن؟ مثلا یکیشون present continuous, past continuous. حال استمراری، گذشته استمراری. Which use have or has? Present perfect. Okay, first let's talk about tenses. I'm using page 129. These pieces are from page 129. Unit 1 reviews what you know. It has examples of the simple present and continuous, the simple past and past continuous, and the present perfect. There are also examples of the passive voice. همونی که بهتون گفتم تو این یونیت ما میخوایم این زمانها رو، این تنس ها رو به اضافه فرم پسیو یعنی مجهولشون یه مرور بکنیم because you know these things. تا اینجای کار دیگه اینا رو بلدین. حالا all these forms are covered again in later units. یعنی تو یونیت های بعدی هم این فرم ها رو ما دوباره کاور میکنیم و اطلاعات بیشتری راجع بهشون میدیم. مثلا present tenses unit 2. تو درس 2 تمام زمانهای حال رو میخونیم. همشون حال ساده، حال استمراری، حال کامل و به همین ترتیب. There are 3 classes of verbs in English. توی انگلیسی ما 3 تا گروه فعلی داریم. Auxiliary verbs, do, be, and have. These are used to form tenses and to show forms such as questions and negatives. اینا باعث میشن که ما بتونیم تنس ها رو بسازیم و بتونیم سوالی و منفی درست کنیم. به این دست از افعال میگیم auxiliary verbs. Modal auxiliary verbs. Must, can, should, might, will, and would are examples of modal auxiliary verbs. همینایی که ما به اسم modal verb ها توی فارسی هی میگیم یا افعال مودال بهشون میگیم اینهان. They help other verbs. اینا به افعال دیگه کمک میکنن. But unlike do, be and have, they have their own meanings. اما برخلاف این ستا که تقریبا توی سوالی ساختن هیچ معنی ندارن، یه وقت have و با have داشتن قاطی نکنینا. ما داریم معنیشون رو به عنوان auxiliary verb میگیم که هیچ معنی ندارن، اما این مودال auxiliary ها خودشون معنی دارن به تک تک. For example, must expresses obligation. برای مثال must برای بیان اجباره. Obligation اجبار. Can expresses ability. Can راجب توانایی صحبت میکنه. و full verbs. These are all the other verbs in the language. تمام فعلای دیگه بجز اینا رو بهشون میگیم full verbs. For example, play, run, help, think, want, go, see, eat, enjoy, live, die, swim, etc. پس یه دسته auxiliary verb داریم، یه دسته modal auxiliary verbs داریم و یه دسته هم full verbs داریم. Do, be and have can also be used as full verbs with their own meanings. حالا این دسته اول که گفتیم auxiliary verb هستن میتونن به معنی کامل خودشون هم استفاده بشن. یعنی do به معنی انجام دادن. I do my laundry on Saturdays. من لباسای کثیفم و شنبه ها میشورم. She does a lot of business in Latin America. اون توی آمریکای لاتین خیلی بیزینس انجام میده. be به معنی بودن. We are in class at the moment. ما الان سر کلاسیم. They were at home yesterday. اینا دیروز خونه بودن. have به معنی داشتن. He has a lot of problems. اون مشکلات زیادی داره. They have 3 children. اونا 3 تا بچه دارن. بریم همین مبحث رو ادامه بدیم. Auxiliary verbs and tenses. Be and the continuous forms. Be verb ing is used to make continuous verb forms. اینو که دیگه بلدین دیگه. وقتی از be فعل و ing استفاده میکنیم زمان استمراری میتونیم بسازیم. Which describe activities in progress and temporary activities. میگه اون کارایی رو توصیف میکنه که الان در جریانن یا موقتی هستن. He is washing his hair. یعنی اون الان داره موهاشو میشوره. Present continuous. They were going to work. Past continuous. اونا داشتن میرفتن سر کار. یعنی این بیه am is are باشه با فعل ing زمان حال استمراری میسازه. Was were باشه با verb ing زمان گذشته استمراری میسازه. I've been learning English for 2 years. حالا present perfect continuous. حال کامل استمراری که have و has و بعد been و بعد فعل ing. I'd like to be lying on the beach right now. Continuous infinitive. مصدر استمراری. I'd like to be lying on the beach. یعنی من دوست دارم که الان right now چون میگه همین الان روی ساحل دراز کشیده باشم. پس تنسایی که یه فرمی از be، فعل و ing دارن تنسای استمراری ما هستن که نشون دهنده فعالیت هایی که یا الان دارن انجام میشن یا موقتی هن. be and the passive voice. حالا بریم سراغ جملات مجهول. be plus past participle is used to form the passive. ما وقتی be رو با شکل سوم فعل استفاده میکنیم میتونیم باهاش مجهول بسازیم. Paper is made from wood. کاغذ از چوب ساخته میشه. این مجهول حال ساده است. am is are شکل سوم. My car was stolen yesterday. دیروز ماشینم دزدیده شد. مجهول گذشته ساده است. was were plus past participle. The house has been redecorated. Present perfect passive. خونه دکوراسیونش عوض شده. have و has been بازم شکل سوم. This homework needs to be done tonight. Passive infinitive. اینم مصدر مجهوله. این تمرین امشب باید انجام بشه. Needs to be done. بازم be و شکل سوم. There is an introduction to the passive on page 131 which we will study. تا اینجا هرچی داریم میگیم همه رو بلدینا. هیچ چیز جدیدی نیست. یعنی تو کتابای سبز، قرمز و زرد اینا رو همه رو خوندین. داریم یه مرور کلی میکنیم تا دونه دونه بریم تو درسای بعدی خیلی بیشتر هم مرورشون کنیم هم جزئیات بهشون اضافه کنیم. Have and the perfect forms. بریم سراغ have و زمانهای کامل. Have plus past participle is used to make perfect verb forms. Have و شکل سوم استفاده میشه که زمانهای کامل رو بسازه. He has worked in 7 different countries. اینو بهش میگفتیم present perfect. Have و has شکل سوم. اون توی 7 تا کشور مختلف کار کرده. She was crying because she had had some bad news. اون داشت گریه میکرد چون یه خبر بدی شنیده بود. این past perfect گذشته کامل. had به اضافه شکل سوم. I'd like to have met Napoleon. Perfect infinitive. مصدر کامله. من دوست داشتم که میتونستم ناپولئون رو ببینم. Perfect means completed before. این که ما به این زمانها میگیم perfect به معنی این هستش که اینا قبل از یه چیز دیگه ای تموم شدن. So present perfect means completed before now. پس زمان حال ساده یعنی تا قبل از الان تموم شده. Past perfect means completed before a time in the past. گذشته کامل به معنی این هستش که قبل از یه زمان دیگه ای توی گذشته تموم شده. برای همینه که به این تنس ها perfect میگیم چون یعنی کامل و تموم شدن. Auxiliary verbs and negatives. To make a negative, add an apostrophe T یا همون not to the auxiliary verb. برای اینکه منفی بسازیم کافیه که به این افعال یه دونه not اضافه کنیم. If there is no auxiliary verb, use don't, doesn't and didn't. حالا اگه اون فعلای کمکی مثل am, is, are, was, were رو نداریم و یه فعل اصلی داریم خب میدونیم که بعد از اینا استفاده کنیم که منفیشون کنیم. یعنی چی؟ مثال بزنیم. He is working. خب منفیش میشه he isn't working. یه not به این اضافه میکنیم. I was thinking. I wasn't thinking. We've seen the play. We haven't seen the play. تا اینجا ببینید نه auxiliary هستن. داریم تو جملمون. اما she works in a bank. دیگه اینجا هیچ فعل کمکی ندارم. اینا که نمیتونم بگم works not یا works sent یا هر چیزی. پس قبلش باید یه auxiliary منفی اضافه کنم. برای روتین she doesn't work in a bank. They like skiing. They don't like skiing. Past form he went on vacation. He didn't go on vacation. It is possible to contract the auxiliaries be and have and use the uncontracted not. اینجا ما اومدیم isn't, wasn't گفتیم اما شما میتونین که این بخش رو contract کنید یعنی کوتاه کنید و not اضافه کنید. یعنی یا بگین he isn't working یا بگین he's not working. هر جفتش هم صحیحه. He is not playing today or he isn't playing today. We're not going to Italy after all. We aren't going to Italy after all. I've not read that book yet. I haven't read that book yet. ببینین همه اینا دو فرمش هم درسته. اما فقط یه دقت کوچولو میخواد که I'm not همیشه همین یه فرمو داره و ما توی انگلیسی amn't نداریم. یعنی نمیتونیم بگیم I amn't. Auxiliary verbs and questions. حالا سوالیا. To make a question, invert the subject and the auxiliary verb. invert کردن یعنی جابجا کنین. این افعال کمکیتون رو با فاعلتون جابجا کنید. She's wearing jeans. این دوتا رو جابجا کنین. Is she wearing jeans? حالا یه WH گذاشته اولش. What is she wearing? You were born in Mexico. جابجا کنید. Were you born in Mexico? حالا یه WH گذاشته. Where were you born? Peter's been to China. جابجا کنید. Has Peter been to China? اما if there is no auxiliary verb, use do, does, did. اگه ندارین از این افعال کمکی یا فعل اصلی دارین دیگه میدونین باید از اینا استفاده کنید. روتین I know you. یه do بذاریم سرش. Do I know you? He wants ice cream. یه does بذاریم اس رو حذف کنیم. Does he want? حالا what does he want? They didn't go out. Did they go out? حالا why did they go out? سوالی منفی. Why didn't they go out? There is usually no do, does, did in subject questions. بچه‌ها دقت کنید که وقتی دارین درباره فاعل سوال میسازید معمولاً do و does و دیدی توی سوالتون ندارین. ببینید who wants ice cream. ما نمیگیم who does want ice cream. نه who wants ice cream. در واقع سوالیایی که مربوط به فاعل هستن فقط کافیه فاعلتون رو حذف کنین. فکر کنیم ما مثلا میگیم علی wants ice cream. شما علی رو حذف کنین جاش یه who بذارین سوالتون ساخته میشه. Who wants ice cream? What flavor ice cream do you want? حالا چه طعمی از بستنی رو میخوای؟ اینجا داریم میگیم چه کسی بستنی میخواد. پس از این auxiliary verb ها نداریم. اما اینجا که میگه چه طعمی از بستنی رو میخوای و دارم از تو سوالو میپرسم دیگه فاعل رو نمیپرسم که اینجا هست. What happened to your eye? چه اتفاقی برای چشمت افتاده؟ نمیگیم what did happen ولی what did you do to your eye؟ تو با چشمت چی کار کردی؟ Who broke the window? کی پنجره رو شکسته؟ How did you break the window? چجوری پنجره رو شکستین؟ پس وقتی سوال راجع به فاعله ما معمولاً do و does و did نداریم. خب بریم سراغ این پارت. یکم اینا رو با هم دیگه تمرین کنیم. You're so wrong. You're making a very big mistake. Correct the information in the sentences. There are some information problems in these sentences. For example, look at the first one. Chichen Itza is in Costa Rica. If you don't know the answer, search it on the internet, please. No, it's not. It's in Mexico. Or number 2, Shakespeare didn't write poems. Poem, like Hafiz wrote poems. Hafiz was a poet. Poet میشه شاعر. Poem میشه شعر. اینجا میگه شکسپیر شعر نمی نوشته. You're wrong. He wrote hundreds of poems. داری اشتباه میکنی. You're wrong یعنی داری اشتباه میکنی. به نظر من برای تمرینای 3 تا 8 اول از همه خودتون این اینفورمیشن رو تو اینترنت سرچ کنین که باعث میشه یه چیزی هم به انگلیسی بخونین اونجا ببینین که این اینفورمیشن ها کجاشون غلطه. بعدش با هم دیگه جوابا رو چک میکنیم. These are my answers. Vegetarians eat meat. You know, vegetarians are the people who just eat vegetables. گیاهخوارا. Vegetarians eat meat. Vegetarians don't eat meat. They just eat vegetables. 4. The internet doesn't provide much information. You're so wrong. It provides a lot of information. Provide means فراهم کردن. میگه اینترنت اطلاعات زیادی رو فراهم نمیکنه. اما همه میدونیم که اینترنت بی نهایت اطلاعات برامون فراهم میکنه. 4. The world is getting colder. دنیا داره سردتر میشه. No, it isn't. It is getting hotter. We all know about the thing which is called global warming. هممون از global warming خبر داریم دیگه. پس it's not getting colder. It's getting hotter. 6. John F. Kennedy was traveling by plane when he was killed. John F. Kennedy, who was the president of the United States, که رئیس جمهور آمریکا بود، اینجا میگه داشت با هواپیما سفر میکرد که کشته شد. No, he was traveling by car. 7. Brazil has never won the World Cup. من خودم واقعا اطلاعاتی راجع به این نداشتم. بنابراین سرچش کردم and Brazil has won the cup 5 times. تا اونجایی که من سرچ کردم 5 بار برنده شده. World Cup جام جهانی. 8. The 2012 Summer Olympics were held in Tokyo. No, the 2012 Summer Olympics were held in London. Hold, past form held یعنی برگزار شدن. میگه المپیک تابستانه 2012 تو توکیو برگزار شده بود، در صورتی که باز من سرچش کردم و توی لندن برگزار شده بود. خب قبل از اینکه بریم با هم دیگه لیسنینگش رو هم گوش بدیم، چون من جوابا رو از خودم نوشتم، 2 تا لغت رو براتون بگم. یکیشو گفتم global warming یعنی گرم شدن کره زمین که کل کره زمین داره گرم میشه و go on about something. When you go on about something you keep talking about it. یعنی همش راجع به یه چیزی مدام صحبت میکنین. این 2 تا کلمه‌ای که تو این لیسنینگ ها الان میشنوینش. بریم یه بار لیسنینگ ها رو با هم گوش بدیم.
Track 3. You're so wrong. 1.
Chichen Itza is in Costa Rica.
No, it's not. It's in Mexico. 2.
Shakespeare didn't write poems.
You're wrong. He wrote hundreds of poems, not just plays.
3.
Vegetarians eat meat.
Of course, they don't eat meat. They only eat vegetables and sometimes fish.
4.
The internet doesn't provide much information.
That's not true. It provides a lot. Sometimes I think it provides too much.
5.
The world is getting colder.
It isn't getting colder. It's getting hotter. Haven't you heard of global warming?
6.
John F. Kennedy was traveling by plane when he was killed.
No, you're wrong. He wasn't traveling by plane. He was traveling by car in Dallas, Texas. 7.
Brazil has never won the World Cup.
Brazil has won it 5 times. My dad goes on about it all the time.
8.
The 2012 Summer Olympics were held in Tokyo.
No, they weren't held in Tokyo. They were held in London.
And now let's talk about apostrophe S and identify if it is or has. Is apostrophe S in these sentences the auxiliary is or has؟ شما میدونین که ما میتونیم is و has رو کوتاه کنیم و با یه apostrophe S بنویسیمش. تو این جمله ها میتونین تشخیص بدین کدومش is و کدومش has هستش. مثلا look at the first one. Who's making that noise? Of course when we have ing it's is. Who is making that noise? Look at number 2 to 6. She's done really well. Since this is verb 3, so it's she has done really well. یعنی اگر بعد از این آپاستروف اس فعلمون ing داشته باشه معلوم میشه که این ایزه، اما اگه فعل سوم باشه معلوم میشه که hasه. she has done. البته یه نکته خیلی ظریفی که هست مبحث مجهولاست، چون میدونید که بعد از مجهولا ما از شکل سوم استفاده میکنیم، پس یکم باید به معنی جمله هم دقت کنین. 3. My sister's a teacher. Definitely my sister is a teacher. 4. Who's been to Thailand? Been, you cannot say who is been, you should say who has been to Thailand. 5. He's leaving early. He is leaving early. 6. What's produced in your country? Again verb 3, but this one is passive. What is produced in your country? پس مبنای تشخیصتون رو صرفا نذارین روی این که اگر ing هست مثل شماره 1 مثلا این حال استمراریه و ایزه و حتما اگه شکل سوم یعنی verb 3 دارم این هزه، اما میدونین که توی مجهول حال ساده ما امایز و آر رو داریم به اضافه شکل سوم فعل، پس باید به معنی جمله با فرمت جملتون هم توجه کنین که تشخیص بدین کدوم is و کدوم has هستش. Listen to some more sentences with apostrophe S and after each one say if it is or has. حالا این بار گوش بدین، بعد از هر جمله بگین is یا has.
Track 4. Is or has. 1,
My brother's just started a new job.
2,
He's working in South America.
3,
He's been there 3 months.
4,
He's having a great time.
5,
He's never worked overseas before.
6,
His company's called Intex Worldwide.
Here are the sentences. My brother's just started a new job. Has just started. He's working in South America. Of course, he is working. 3. He's been there 3 months. This apostrophe S is he has been there. 4. He's having a great time. He is having a great time. 5. He's never worked overseas before. Overseas means in other countries. این که میگه he's never worked overseas before یعنی تا حالا تو کشورهای دیگه به غیر از کشور خودش کار نکرده. Overseas یعنی کشورهای دیگه. خب باز وقتی فعل سوم داریم و جمله‌مون قشنگ معلومه. It's present perfect. حال کامله. پس he has never worked. 6. His company is called Intex Worldwide. Is called. It's a passive sentence. شرکتش Intex Worldwide نامیده میشه. این یه جمله مجهول حال ساده. خب بریم سراغ تمرین آخر از این بخش talking about you. خیلی تمرین مهمیه because you have to complete the questions with the correct auxiliary verb and then you can name the tense. میتونین حتی اسم tense ها رو بگین، اما دیگه اینجا شما اینو do, does, did, am, is, are, was, were, have, has, passive or active. Number 1. What time you usually get up on weekends? Because it's routine, so we say do. Simple present. زمان حال ساده است دیگه. میگه معمولاً چه ساعتی از خواب بیدار میشی آخر هفته ها؟ برای یو هم که دو میاریم. 2. What time you get up this morning? This morning is finished, so it's in the past. What time did you get up this morning? Simple past. امروز صبح چه ساعتی بیدار شدی؟ گذشته ساده است. 3. How long it usually take you؟ دوباره usually دارین. پس یه چیز روتینه. برای it How long does it usually take you to get from home to school؟ میگه چقدر برای تو معمولاً طول میکشه که از خونه برسی به مدرسه. اینم سوال خوبیه. How long does it take؟ و بعدش حالا جمله‌ای که میخوایم بسازین How long does it take یعنی چقدر طول میکشه. 4. Who sitting next to you؟ وقتی ing داریم و جمله now الان هستش Who is sitting next to you؟ کی الان کنارتون نشسته؟ و what he she wearing؟ What is he or she wearing؟ چی تنشه الان؟ Present continuous. حال استمراریه. 5. How long you known the teacher؟ وقتی فعل سوم داریم verb 3 and we have how long we definitely know that this is present perfect. So how long have you known the teacher؟ چه مدته که معلمتون رو میشناسین؟ شماها چه مدته که منو میشناسین؟ How long have you known me؟ 6. What you doing when your teacher came into the room؟ When this part of the sentence is past، وقتی این بخش از جمله گذشته است، پس this part must be past continuous. باید گذشته استمراری باشه به خاطر اینکه ing داره. حالا میشه What were you doing؟ داشتین چی کار میکردین که معلمتون اومد توی کلاس؟ 7. What not means we should make it negative you like doing in English class. خب وقتی فعلتون زمان حاله میخواد بپرسه چه کاری رو دوست ندارین توی کلاس انگلیسیتون انجام بدین. زمان حال روتین ing هم که نداریم پس do و does میخوایم دیگه. برای you هم do میخوایم. فقط باید سوالی منفی بسازیم. What don't you like؟ چه کاری رو دوست ندارین انجام بدین. 8. Which school subjects you like when you were younger؟ This part is the past, so this part must be past, but negative. Like, past question, didn't you like? وقتی جوان تر بودین چه مباحثی رو توی مدرسه دوست نداشتین؟ 9. Which other foreign languages you studied? So far, until now. This is verb 3. Which other foreign languages have you studied? میخواد بگه چه زبونهای خارجی دیگه ای رو تا الان خوندی. پس میشه present perfect. 10. What presents you given on your last birthday? Tell me, is this sentence active or passive? شما به هم بگید این جمله معلومه یا مجهوله؟ چه کادوهایی شما داده شد به شما داده شد در واقع تولدتون؟ Of course it's passive. Last birthday تولد گذشته so it must be past passive. For you, were you given? بهتون توی تولد آخریتون چی داده شد؟ حالا you can answer these questions. میتونین سوالا رو خودتون جواب بدید. مثلا What time do you usually get up on weekends? I usually get up at 9 o'clock. What time did you get up this morning? Today I got up at 8:15. و به همین ترتیب میتونین همه سوالا رو جواب بدین. خب درس 1 و ویدیو اولش رو همینجا با همدیگه نگه داریم. حسابی روی تنس‌های مختلف با همدیگه کار کردیم. به خصوص روی auxiliary verb هاشون با همدیگه کار کردیم و کامل زمانهایی که تا اینجا خوندیم رو یه مرور کلی کردیم. اما نگران نباشین چون تک تک این زمانها رو دوباره توی درس‌های بعدی با همدیگه مرور می‌کنیم و از هر کدوم یه سری نکته جدید اضافه می‌کنیم. ویدیو رو اینجا نگه داریم. درس رو که کامل کردین و خوندین، بریم سراغ ویدیوی بعدی، بخش دوم این درس.